Have you ever felt bad for throwing away your paper egg cartons? Well, stop recycling them and do this instead. For this project, I first tore up the paper egg cartons into pieces and placed them in a big bowl. Once I had enough pieces, I filled the bowl with water and made sure the pieces were submerged, then let the paper soak for 24 hours. After 24 hours of soaking, I added a couple of handfuls of the soaked paper to a thrifted blender along with a little water and blended it all into a pulp. I used a long straw to move the paper around in order to get everything blended completely. I continued blending until I made it through all the soaked paper. I squeezed out as much of the water as I could from the pulp and placed it in a dry bowl. I added 1 tablespoon of salt to help avoid mold growth, 1 tablespoon of mineral oil, 1 tablespoon of distilled white vinegar, and 1/4 cup of PVA glue or school glue. Then I added in 2 cups of plain all-purpose flour. I mixed it all up with my hands until it came together and formed a ball. Now we have paper clay. I wrapped the paper clay in plastic wrap, then placed it in an airtight bag and stored it in the refrigerator until I was ready to use it. For the first project, I wrapped an Old Spice jar with plastic wrap, turned it upside down, then started applying the paper clay a little bit at a time until I was happy with the shape. Then I rounded off the edges and used a blunt tool to create vertical lines all around it. Once it was shaped, I allowed it to dry overnight, then removed it from the mold and continued drying it in the oven at 170 degrees Fahrenheit for several hours. Once it was completely dry, I used a sanding block to sand it smooth, then applied 2 coats of an off-white acrylic paint to the outside only. This little container is now the perfect toothpick holder for my table. For the second project, I lined a ceramic pot I had with plastic wrap, then slowly started adding the paper clay to the inside of the pot. I cut off the top of the clay to make the new pot level on top, then used a skewer to poke holes all around the top edge, about 1 inch down. I allowed the clay to dry overnight, then removed it from the pot and baked it in the oven at 170 degrees for several hours, rotating as needed until it was fully dry. Then I sanded it smooth and used a variety of brown and white paints along with a sponge to paint the outside and inside of the bowl. Now I have a cute little faux terracotta bowl that looks perfect on my outdoor side table. For the final project, I simply rolled the remaining clay I had into balls of various sizes. Once they dried, I started covering them in a variety of materials I had on hand, all from the Dollar Tree. I wrapped a few of the balls in nautical rope, some in twine, and some in dried floral moss. For the last few, I wrapped some gold wire around a ball, then removed the ball, leaving the wire. Once everything was finished, I added them to a decorative brass bowl, and now they make the perfect bowl fillers. I hope this tutorial inspired you to recycle some old egg cartons and turn them into something fun and beautiful for your home. Thanks so much for watching Hometalk, and I'll see you next time.
Don't throw away empty toilet paper rolls. Make sure that all paper tissue has been removed from the rolls. Line up a paper roll against a ruler on a table. Make a mark with a pencil about every 1/2 inch. Cut across the width of the roll in a straight line, creating 1/2 inch rings. Arrange the rings on a sheet of cardboard or a drop cloth with the flat side facing up. Spray paint the tops and sides of the rings in your chosen color. Once dry, flip the rings over so the opposite flat side faces up. Spray paint this flat surface of the rings as well as the sides. Gather up your dry painted rings and pull out 5 of the rings. Place these 5 rings with end points meeting at a center point. Then, with a hot glue gun, lay out a thin bead of glue on the end of each ring crease and attach the points together in the middle to create a flower shape. Take several of the flowers and arrange them in a flat pattern with connecting points for all the flowers. Once you have the base size you want, start to glue the flowers vertically at connecting points. Display your new floral pattern bowl in your home.
I picked up some brown paper bags from my local grocery store, and then I also have some of these styrofoam balls in various sizes. And the first thing we're going to need to do is cut our brown paper bag. And what we're going to do is just kind of measure out the size that we need. We're going to start with some Mod Podge. I'm going to cover about half the ball again. That way we keep our fingers nice and clean and we don't have Mod Podge everywhere. And we do want to add a lot of this Mod Podge to keep this bag in place. Now that we have the ball completely covered, we can just take the rest of the bag and slowly bring it up the ball all the way. After doing that, we can just snip off some of the excess. And I do want to leave a little bit at the surface, and you can just kind of twist it around. I want 3 of them, so I'm going to take 2 more and do the same exact process, and we're going to be able to do this out of just 1 paper bag. So I have 3 beautiful yellow tulips, which are one of my favorites. So to start, we're going to cut our stem, leaving only about ½ an inch or so. So while the Mod Podge is still wet, I'm just going to kind of unravel the bulb a little bit. Take the end of our tulip, poke it right into the styrofoam, and then just take that brown paper bag and kind of squish it around. It's okay if it's jagged, it's okay if it's loose, because that's exactly how tulip bulbs grow. They kind of flake off as an onion would. Now it's time to create a pretty arrangement. So we're going to take some of those scrap stems that we got from the tulips. I'm just going to put them through my cutters. And we only need a little length to be able to insert into some styrofoam. So we're going to insert into the styrofoam ball, like so. Now I have this container. We already put some styrofoam, some moss, and some mossy rocks on top of it. And what we're going to do is just take our stems and poke them right in. So since we went through all of the effort of making the bulbs, we got to make sure that these bulbs are above the surface, which is perfectly fine and looks really pretty. So I'll just take those 3, work them right inside. And here is how it turned out. I absolutely love it. And I think my favorite aspect of how fresh and exciting this looks and an unusual way of using spring bulbs by having the bulbs still revealed. I decided to keep it simple, just a little bit of moss, a couple rocks, and those 3 bulbs that we made together, all inside of a container. You can do this to any spring flowering bulb like I mentioned before, and they come in so many shapes and colors and sizes, along with the styrofoam balls to create. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Nick Kretikos of Nick's Seasonal Decor, and you're watching me on Hometalk.
Save a big balloon from your next party for this cool home decor DIY. To start this project, I've blown up the balloon and I need to get my paste and paper ready. Paper mache paste is really easy to make. It's just flour and water. For the paper, I'm using some flyers that I don't need, and I want to rip them into different size pieces. I don't want to make them too big or they'll be too hard to smooth out, but I do want them to be big enough to cover a nice area of the balloon. I'm going to put some of the paste onto the balloon first and then lay on a piece of the newsprint over top. To smooth out the paper, I want to cover it with another layer of the paste and just use my fingers to smooth it out. I'm going to keep doing this as I work my way around and over the entire balloon. I have made sure though to leave the top of the balloon uncovered so that I can make an opening to my vase later on. While the paste is drying, I want to make the neck of the vase. I'm going to use these clear plastic sheets that I have, and I've gone ahead and taped 2 together. I'm going to fold up the sheet about 2 inches and create a really thick crease. Then I want to make little cuts up to the crease about 1 inch or less apart. These are going to allow me to stick it to the balloon in a nice circle shape. Next, I want to trim off the excess on the top and then make the same little cuts from the top down to the crease. To cover the clear collar and make it part of the paper mache, I'm going to start covering it with the paste and paper until I've gone over the entire collar. I've also used a little bit of packing tape just to hold it in place while I'm doing this. Before I begin covering the top part of the collar, I want to use some packing tape again just to shape the top of the vase. I can keep playing with the top until I get a shape I like, and then I can start covering it with the paper and paste. I'm going to add a second full coat of the paper and paste to the entire balloon as well, and then I'm going to let it all dry overnight again. Now that the paper mache part is done, I want to cover it all with some thick jute twine. I'm going to start at the crease between the base and the neck of the vase and work my way down. I'm using hot glue to keep the twine in place as I wrap the twine around the balloon. With the base of the balloon covered, I want to remove the balloon now and start on the neck. I want to trim off all the excess paper from the opening now at the top. This will give it a nice clean opening. To cover up the paper mache at the top, I want to use the same twine and wrap it all around the top lip and then go right inside. I'm so glad I saved this balloon to use to create this beautiful vase. I love the natural look of the twine and the twigs together. I hope this has inspired you to make your own paper mache vase as well. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Home Talk. I'll see you next time.